2016. We're recording this at my home in Madison, Mississippi.
And this is Emily Penn Hoff, Bill's daughter, and I will be interviewing him from behind the camera. When you landed at Cameron Bay, what exactly happened after that, and what was it like being in Vietnam?
Well, Cam Bay was very crowded because it was the main entry point for soldiers coming into Vietnam. So I waited there, and I don't recall exactly how long, but it was a couple of weeks until I could be assigned. And I went from Cam Ranh to Nha Trang, which was one of the larger cities on the coast. And from Nha Trang, I was reassigned as an artillery support person for an ARVN regiment. And the ARVN regiment, this was an infantry regiment, and I was an artillery officer. And of course, we supported the artillery in a town called Song Mao. Song Mao was on the coast of Vietnam, south of Nha Trang and Cam Ranh Bay. And we supported, as I said, an ARVN infantry. I stayed there approximately 3 or 4 months. I don't recall exactly how long. But then I was sent up to Dalat. Dalat was in the mountains of the South Annamite mountain chain, 5,000 feet above sea level. So it was quite high. But it was a beautiful city. It was the home of the Vietnamese Military Academy, and it was the primary resort area for Saigon, which was a couple of 100 miles to the south. So it was a beautiful, beautiful city and a beautiful location. There, I was an assistant S3, S3 being an operations officer, for an artillery group, which was composed of 3 battalions. And we had a huge area of operation, 200 miles by 200 miles, and we had a bunch of fire bases. I think, as I recall, about 15 fire bases out in the mountains. And we supported ARVN, the Army of the Republic of Vietnam infantry. And we also prevented the Viet Cong and the NDA, the North Vietnamese Army, from sending stuff in through Cambodia. That was a big, quote, port of entry, Cambodia. And of course, we would use artillery fire to restrict that.
So what was it like seeing combat over there?
Well, it was, of course, something I'd never seen before. You could watch this stuff on television or movies, but until you experience it firsthand, you don't really know. And again, I might just say here that we prayed a lot, and it was God's grace that kept almost all of us alive. Because I was in artillery, I did not see much hand-to-hand combat. If I had been in infantry, of course, I would have done that. But I did see some, and I was on some fire bases that were mortared and rocketed. In fact, our home fire base was shot at by rockets by the Viet Cong, and of course we reacted to that. And it only happened one time in a year, so we were pretty successful at eliminating that.
Were there any casualties in your unit, though?
I had just 1 or 2 casualties because, like I said, we were artillery support. So we weren't on the, quote, front lines in the sense of engaging the enemy. But we were very fortunate there in only having a couple on fire bases. There were no casualties in my unit where our fire base was in Dalat, but this would have been out in the countryside. We call it triple canopy jungle because there's a lot of jungle out there.
Do you have any memorable experiences that you want to share?
Oh yes, a lot of them. I'll just be brief here. Again, I can remember George Peppard, the famous actor, breakfast at Tiffany's, Banachek, coming to visit, and I've got a couple of pictures with him. A very nice man, a very nice gentleman. Occasionally we would get celebrities to come up to the fire base, and because we were fairly protected, they would come, you know, to our home fire base in Dalat. But I can remember that. Another one was when my immediate superior, Major Fritz Neufer, left and went back to the United States to actually the Naval Command School. And I did this little visual for him. It said, "Anchors Away," because he was going to the Naval. See, he was an Army officer, but it was quite an honor to be selected to go to the Naval War College. Being an Army person, it usually meant you were being prepared for higher level management. At any rate, Anchors Away, A-W-E-I-G-H, instead of A-W-A-Y. And everybody loved that. It was funny. It was one of those times we kind of celebrated his service there in Dalat. Again, meeting some of the people. We didn't meet too many Vietnamese in Dalat, but the ones that we did were some of the elite, if I can say that. So that was a special memory. And of course, riding around in helicopters. Because our area was so large, I had to fly to a lot of fire bases, and so I did a lot of traveling in helicopters, Rangers, and a couple of times in Hueys, and I actually got to fly one of them one time. One of the pilots let me try to fly. That was kind of a memorable time.
Well, tell us about some of the artifacts that you've held on to for all these years, and how you attained them, and what they were used for and their original purpose.
Yeah, well, these were given to me by various people. I say given to me, most of them. I can't remember which ones I purchased, but this is a Montagnard axe. And I can't even remember, I don't think I purchased any of these. They were given, but you can see it's a very strong root or something here, and the axe is stuck into it. And of course the Montagnards, mountain people in Vietnam, would use this for cutting. Here's another one. This is a Montagnard crossbow with arrows. And again, the fellow who gave this to me showed me, how to use it. I never did really learn how to shoot this thing, but it's a crossbow, as you can see. And the arrows, again, made out of wood, but the more you use it, the better you get. So you could get fairly accurate with these. Now, here is a Montagnard guitar. Of course, the strings are out, so I can't play it for you. Otherwise, I would try to play a tune for you. But you can see, again, it's made out of wood, and very, very good. And finally, here's a blanket, a Montagnard blanket. I'm not going to completely unravel it, but beautiful colors. And they love these colors, reds, blues, greens, oranges. You can see the beautiful color in this blanket. So these are just some of the ones, souvenirs that I brought back, and of course many bullets.
Well, tell us about, did you receive any awards or medals?
Well, yes, I did. At Fort Belvoir, I got the Army Commendation Medal. And then in Vietnam, I got another Army Commendation Medal and a Bronze Star. Now again, these were all for service in certain operations. The one, of course, at Fort Belvoir, the Army Commendation Medal, was for my work there as a an analyst, an operations research analyst. The ones in Vietnam were again the Army Commendation Medal, which is this green one, and then the Bronze Star was for service in various operations where we were trying to cut supply lines from the North Vietnamese to the Viet Cong. And we did a lot of artillery support for the infantry, and we did a lot of harassing and interdiction firing, H&I. So, it was mainly for service in terms of artillery.